Hello and welcome back to Roaming with Restless Women, Real Talk with Wise Dynamic Women Leaders. I'm Julie Noonan, I'm your host, and today I have with me Jen Aks. Jen has been a leadership and embodiment coach and educator for 30 years, helping people unlock their emotional intelligence to live a confident and truly fully expressed life. Many people struggle with hidden insecurities and self-doubt, which often occurs because society places such a high value on logical intelligence. Jen knows this because she was one of those people. Growing up, she felt inadequate, not smart enough, which held her back from amazing opportunities and hindered her confidence. Hitting rock bottom led her to get curious. This is where she learned about the multiple forms of intelligence, inspired by the work of Howard Gardner, professor of cognition at Harvard University. Through her studies, Jen quickly realized she had been measuring herself against just one form of intelligence her entire life and coming up short. Discovering her strengths in other intelligences transformed her life. I love a good transformation story. I'm just telling you. It also boosted her self-esteem and deepened her success, both personally and professionally. Now she specializes in helping others awaken and enhance their emotional intelligence, overcome self-doubt, and achieve greater success in all aspects of life. Jen's passion is to empower people to own and value who they are so that they can live from a place of authenticity, lead with authority, and design a life they truly desire. Welcome, Jen.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm really thrilled. Let's start off with tell me about you and your journey up to the point that you found your transformation.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge question.
I know.
But I will break it down and I will summarize. And before I do, I just want to say that Howard Gardner is a professor of cognition and education at Harvard University. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
No, thank you.
Just in case he's listening, I want him to be represented appropriately.
Absolutely.
So my journey here has been quite incredible, and I'm so glad to be on this side of it, able to really help others awaken all that they are. And remember is the most important, because we all have this possibility of being empowered and inspired and living our purpose. And we just need to get back to our essence. So that's my goal and my mission, because I really was disconnected from that for quite a while. The first couple of decades of my life until my late 20s, I did live with tremendous self-doubt, basically because I grew up having this very limited understanding of what intelligence meant. I was surrounded by an educational system where I grew up, where teachers were teaching to the test and everything was about standardized scores and IQ scores. And if you didn't match those numbers, that's what intelligence was. That's how it was measured. That's what everybody spoke about. That's what got you into college. And I did not do well on either of those things. And so I really struggled. And I also struggled with the way education in general was presented. It was very linear, very logical and mathematical. And that's an incredible way to learn if that's how you're wired, if that's what resonates with you, if that's what helps you process. And for me, it just wasn't. But I didn't know any other way, and my teachers didn't know any other way, and no one was talking about any other way. So I was really looked over. And so I developed this story that I wasn't smart, and that I wasn't worthy, and all these things. And it like manifested over years, and it did hold me back from a lot of incredible opportunities. At the same time that I was having this journey of insecurity and self-doubt, I also had found movement, dance in particular, that saved me. It really, because it kept me connected to the essence of me. It allowed me to explore the language of the body and explore communication without words. And that became my life. And I danced and I choreographed, and that was everything for me. And I knew that it was special, and I knew that it was more than just dance and movement, but no
Mm-hmm.
one categorized it or spoke about it as intelligent. So I still thought I was not smart, right? But it was later when I really awakened and learned and began to align with that strength inside of myself. And that happened because in my late 20s, I was invited to a dinner with a very prestigious celebrity type. And if you know, which you probably do, John F. Kennedy Jr.'s son, I'm sorry, John F.
Yes.
Kennedy's son, JFK
Uh-huh.
Jr., was friends with my boyfriend at the time. And
Oh, neat.
we were invited to go to dinner with him in Caroline. And this was a week before he actually died in a plane crash.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I know a lot of people don't know who he is, younger generations and stuff. But it really speaks to just being invited to a dinner with someone prestigious who you thought was like so smart and just intimidated you. And so I said no to this invitation. And it was that night when I felt so just taken down by this insecurity. And my body at this point was like, enough is enough. Like, when are you gonna step up and into the power and strength of who you are? You better go figure this out because you're
Yeah.
more than this. So that's when I learned about Howard Gardner and the multiple forms of intelligence. And when I had learned that there was such a thing, I couldn't believe nobody told me.
Oh, me. So how did you stumble across his work?
Such a great question. So my first step was I need to go into, I want
Uh-huh.
to understand what's going on. And then my therapist, who I loved, introduced me to this professor. And this professor studied the work of Howard Gardner, who has written a million books about the multiple forms of intelligence. And
Yeah.
at that point, she and I went on a 6-year journey, and it was connecting me. That journey was all about connecting me to kinesthetic intelligence, which is intelligence of the body. People
Mhm.
that learn with their body, sensory, very sensory, and can understand through visuals. That's like kinesthetic intelligence. And then she really connected me to intra and interpersonal intelligence, which is all about emotional intelligence. And so between these two, and there are several others,
Oh, yeah.
but these were the three that really spoke to me. And then we began this educational journey for 6 years where I tapped into those forms, how I could learn. And it changed my entire life, changed my entire life.
Give me an example of how, give me one example of how you learned something through one of these other methods.
Oh, yeah. Let's just start with geography. I would, based on a place and maybe the crops that they built or that came, I would just move it in my body. I would
Okay.
create the shape, let's say, of the state, of the country, I would create visuals. I'm a visual learner. So
Uh-huh.
we would take out articles that I would never understand, not because it's just the black and white, straight up, like the New York Times. I would take a New York Times article and we would work on that and we would create the visual map of what that article was saying. And it spoke to me in that way. It could be like stick figures and shapes and different things that would help me connect. And because I unlocked this within myself, I then found myself with a 20-year career as a teaching artist, teaching embodied curriculum, teaching curriculum through the body, basically. And we did that
Wow.
through poetry and music. And I worked with children, and then I wound up teaching the adults. And it was a 20-year chapter of my life. And I poured myself into it because I knew what it felt like not to understand the traditional way. So this
Mhm.
methodology was all about teaching people curriculum through the body, teaching children through the body. And so I healed a lot and learned a lot
Uh-huh.
myself through this methodology.
That's amazing. How,
Yeah.
so did you develop the program yourself or
Oh, no, no.
you took a
No, this was
program
something that
and
had been in place for 45 years, and I came across it, and
oh,
I was like, I completely jaw dropped, like, this is what I needed when I was a kid.
oh
Sign me up right
wow.
now. And I learned it very quickly, the method, and it's complicated, but I did it because my entire soul was in it for the children and for me. It became my
Yeah.
20-year healing journey. And I also empowered, most importantly, helped and empowered children and teachers across the country. It was a pretty wild, incredible chapter.
And it seems to me like you were teaching in a different way for differently abled kids, and
Yep.
not special needs or those kids, but just kids that learn differently. It reminds me of the Montessori effort or the
Yeah.
Montessori school type thing. Or
Yes.
I've heard recently about my little grandnephew goes to a nature school,
Mm.
and it's a preschool, but they do everything outside. And
Oh,
it's touch, and it's talk about the leaves and why they change and what colors they are. It's just, it's a different environment, and he just loves it, loves it, loves it. So I can
well,
imagine. Yeah.
he needs to know, if he doesn't already, that there is one form of intelligence that Howard Gardner focuses on is naturalistic intelligence.
Oh,
Yes, and naturalistic intelligence are people that have strong connection to the natural world. And these people excel in biology and environmental science and
yeah.
gardening, wildlife. And if he gravitates towards that and he really learns best through the experiences in
Mhm.
nature and hands-on exploration and outdoor activities, he's got naturalistic intelligence.
Oh, I'm gonna talk with his mom and tell her about that.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. Because he's obviously in an environment that supports and inspires that. But like growing up, if you don't know that's actually a thing, you might miss the opportunity to become as empowered as you could be in your
Right.
life.
And it sounds like you had a scarcity, you were growing up with a scarcity mindset just because of all of there's something deficient with me. I'm not like everybody else. And that whole scarcity mindset as opposed to an abundance mindset. And and I hate that for anybody, actually. And I think all of us to some degree or another have a little shred. Some have bigger shreds than others,
Yeah,
but I know I always felt inadequate with the math. I can't, and I hate it.
that's
That's how it
okay.
is. You describe it in words, and I see it in pictures in my head, and we're good to go. So,
A
yeah.
hundred percent. I think more and more teachers are leaning in this direction and the awareness is deepening, but it really needs to be really emphasized because it's okay and to give ourselves permission for that. Absolutely.
So,
I do think that our doubt around our intelligence, whatever form that is for all of us, I think that's a real root of like
yes.
worthiness and confidence moving
Oh,
through the world. And I think so much of us, like I said, there's a lot of us that walk around with a little bit of self-doubt or unworthiness or whatever it is. And it really, I invite people to really look at this. Is it because you don't think that you are smart enough in whatever way? Here
mhm.
are the multiple forms and let's get to know them so that you can get rid of that limiting belief.
And you shared that you discovered a method, or you created a method called the power of gesture,
Yeah.
and that it awakens emotional intelligence and enhances lives. So, talk to me a little bit. Describe the power of gesture.
Yeah. So this is a methodology that is really the combination of my movement background, right? I've been a dancer, dance educator for over 30 years,
Hmm.
and combined with the research of Howard Gardner and Daniel Goleman. Daniel
Oh yeah.
Goleman's research is primarily about emotional intelligence, and
Hmm.
Howard Gardner is the multiple forms. And so I blended both and created the power of gesture. And that happened in the pandemic. And it wasn't
Oh,
anything that
so
I
much came out
intentionally,
of the pandemic.
I know so much, I know. So we arrived at the pandemic, and I knew that I wanted to help people move through their emotions and talk through them and process them. And because
Mhm.
I know the power of movement, because it helped me so much heal myself, I wanted to help people use movement as a tool, as a catalyst. So I started talking to people online and virtually. We were all home. So I was talking to people all over the world and hearing about their stories of isolation and hearing about their struggles and hearing about the emotional turbulence that was going on within them. And I wanted to invite them to move, but I didn't want them to stand up and do this big like dance thing. I wanted them to stay connected stay close to me so that I could
Right.
feel them as much as possible. I really need to feel the energy. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I could on Zoom, but as long as they stayed close to me. So what wound up happening naturally is they would talk to me about their pain, and I would ask them to move that emotion through their body with their hands because we were here in this frame.
Oh,
So whether it was like struggle or fear, doubt, or something heart-centered, whatever it was, you can't even imagine the brilliant, beautiful gestures that these people would come up with.
yeah.
And so I would link these gestures with then music. So all of a sudden it's like this choreography with their hands without words, and they're processing and moving through to awaken and also to really understand. So the hands, then I started doing some research, and there's tissue in the brain that are specifically connected to the hands that help you process your emotions. It was very clear as to why this method started working and started shifting and transforming people's lives and their
Wow.
stories. And it was truly an unbelievable thing because this kind of took a life of its own. And I felt like I was a passenger on a bus. I had no idea where I was going. I was like, okay, we're going to do this thing. And so this is how the power of gesture was born. And then one thing led to another. I was working individually, then I started working with groups. And then when the doors opened, after when the pandemic ended and I started doing things in person, and it's just really built on itself. And it's become such a beautiful practice that not only heals, but really celebrates who we are. Because like we said at the beginning of this conversation, power of gesture really brings you back to the essence of who you are, the emotional intelligence that rests within. I talk about all these multiple forms just to drop the seed so people get curious. But really, I specialize in the emotional intelligence because it's what our essence is all about. We all have it. We can develop it. And through movement, as a dancer, there's a lot of power in it.
Oh, if we crack the code on emotions, that right there, first of all, emotions, I think, tell you more about yourself than anything else ever, because there's no filter to them. When you first feel them, you feel them. It doesn't go through your brain and go, oh, let me think. I think I'll be sad today.
Right.
You just are. And then you think about why. So and there's a lot of people that argue, is it the thinking that creates the emotion or the emotion that creates the thinking? And I go back and forth, but mainly I think the emotion creates the thinking.
I could not agree more. We feel it. We feel it. And
We
then we
feel
start
it first. Yeah,
thinking about
exactly.
it. And so it's that connection that's important, but it's also getting out of your head and into your body, like really allowing your body to speak, allowing your body to guide you. And that's why
Mhm.
the power of this work, the emotional intelligence, and really getting to know how we feel, that's where all the wisdom lies. That's the greatest resource we could ever rely on. But it's scary. It's scary to look at the truth sometimes. And
It
so,
sure is.
right?
So, what values do you hold that kind of helps you get through to your clients and to the groups that you work with? What kind of values do you bring in the room with you?
With the work, or like values for my own life, like how I lead my life?
I would
Well,
say both, the thread that runs through all of it, you know.
yeah, I think it's first of all, for me, I care so deeply about this work. I like see everyone. I do see obviously the body in front of me. I see you, I see your face,
Of course.
but I care so much about the soul. And I care so much about people getting back to that essence of their soul, that purity, that crying baby, that tantruming kid, that person that when once was unapologetic for how they felt and just led with their emotions. Like, I'm very passionate about that. So passion is a huge authentic passion. Like,
Yes.
this is my work when I feel. So I like to create a very safe environment. So safety and passion and values around really, with the safety comes an ability to look at the truth. And the messaging throughout all of it is, let's look at the truth, because if we're leading our life from the outside in versus the inside out, then we're just not leading with authenticity. We're looking out there when the answers are all here. We just have to be
Right.
brave enough. So bravery and being courageous and allowing and trusting whatever comes through to face that and knowing that's hard. So I show up in thread with my own life and with my clients to really create that kind of space so that people can face their darkest thoughts and welcome their lightest emotions so that they can walk this path. So does that answer the question? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Love it. Absolutely. So, what do you wish you had known before you got into this work?
That's a tricky question because had I known all of this, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
Right.
So I don't have any regrets. I'm not
Good.
like, oh my God, I wish I knew this when I was young.
Mhm.
Sure. Would I have liked to have known that there were other ways to learn and that I was really smart and capable and worthy, but we just needed to find the way in which education would
Mhm.
land well with or whatever? Sure, that would have been great. But in reflection, I'm really happy with how it all went because it has allowed me to be so passionate about something. I care so deeply because my work comes out of my own life experience.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you've lived through something and then you can help others do that same thing. It makes a
It does.
huge difference. So I have three questions that I always ask my clients or my guests at the end. I'm a consultant, so I always say client at the end of the podcast. The first one is, if you close your eyes, I will say, wise woman, describe what, and you
I
can open
see.
your eyes whenever you want.
Oh, okay. Ah, wise woman, what do I see? I see like this version of me. I do. I'm seeing myself. Is that crazy?
Great.
Is that what you
I
were thinking?
love it. I love it.
I do.
What do
I
you
see
see?
myself like standing strong, helping I see so many people in front of me and around me on the side of me. And I just see, and my hair gets like big, and I just see this presence. Like I want to hold space for so many. So I really see myself
That's
with like
beautiful.
tons of people around.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Was I supposed to say Maya Angelou or something?
Well,
Because,
no, there's no there's never a right answer when
yeah.
you're talking to me. Where do you like to roam?
Mm. Through around nature, through and around nature. Yeah.
Awesome. And what makes you restless?
Staying in my head too long.
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of mine too, I have to say. Is there anything that you want to share as we're getting ready to log off here? How do people get a hold of you? Where do they learn about the power of gesture, etc.?
Yeah. So my website is www.jenaks.com. Instagram is the social platform that I spend most of my time on. It's at Jen_Aks. On
Okay.
my website, I have a freebie. Download it. Today I am swapping this new freebie that with my old one is great, and if that's the one people get, it's still great. But by the time this plays and people hear, I'll have my new one up, and it's great. And it really takes you through and introduces you to the power of gesture in a concise way. It's 20 minutes. You can do it in 3 parts. You can do it the whole thing in one sitting.
Uh-huh.
So there's that. Download is free and amazing introduction to the power of gesture. Also, I do hold Tuesday and Wednesday weekly classes, 30 minutes. So you can come on with me and I
Hmm.
will take you through the power of gesture. And it's amazing. So it's 30 minutes.
Wow.
Tuesdays at 10, Wednesdays at 12. And that link is in my Instagram bio. It's on my website where it says connect with me. So you can do that also. And that's a great way to meet me. I can learn about you and you can be introduced to the power of gesture.
Oh, that is great, especially the download. I'm very interested. I'm going to definitely head out there
Yes.
and
Oh,
get
good.
that. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Jen, for being on with us and for sharing your journey with us and your words of wisdom. And believe me, there are so many people out there that will really resonate with your message, you
Oh, I'm
know.
so glad. I want to say one
Yes.
other thing. I'm going to give
Okay.
you a link
Okay.
for your listeners, and it's a free download with the multiple forms of intelligence listed out
Okay.
and very briefly described so that they can try to identify and align and just educate themselves about
Oh,
these forms of intelligence. So
that's
I'll send that to you.
thank you so much. Thank you. We'll put
Yeah.
that in the show notes, everybody. And I'll have all of the links that Jen shared with me in the show notes as well. Jen, thank you so much for being part of this group.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.